Hello, everyone. Welcome. Can't hear? All right, let me get a little closer. Are we okay now? All right, that sounds good. So welcome. We're so glad to see so many people here. We also want to welcome our friends at the Library Admin Center who are attending our fabulous watch party, and all the folks who are sitting at home around their kitchen tables, on the couch, wherever, just taking this in. We're just really happy to have everyone participating in this event. So my name is Shelley Lewis, and I'm president of the League of Women Voters of Giaga, and we would like to open our program with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, get comfy. We got to go through the rules. Okay, well, first we have to thank people, because it takes a lot of people and a lot of cooperation and a lot of help to put on an event like this. And so I want to start by thanking the Chagrin Valley Times. Is this our new editor? David?
David is fine.
Okay, David is fine, does not wish to be identified. David has continued the fine tradition of publishing for free the voter guide that so many of you get. Yes, subscribe. Subscribe. Local news is so important to our democracy. So please subscribe. If you need a copy, we have plenty outside. There are also plenty of copies at all of the local library branches, have free copies. So make sure that your friends get them too. Obviously the library. How many of you are seeing this space for the first time tonight? Yeah, isn't it great? I live in Auburn Township. This is my library, and I had no idea we had this. So this is just fabulous. We're so thankful that they stepped in to help us kind of at this late date. So we really appreciate it. Chris Carroll, Michael Pope over here, and I don't know if Katie Farrell is here, the branch manager?
She's in her office on the live stream.
Ah, doing the live stream. So it was a great team to work with. We're really thankful for that. Obviously, yes, give it up. GTV in the back. This is not Dave, this is Brian. I always mess it up. But providing the best quality, live streaming and recording that we can get. They will also be providing, in addition to the live stream, they'll be providing a recording that will be on our YouTube channel and on GTV's various outlets. I'll put it that way. So thank you, GTV. We really appreciate you doing this for us. And last but not least, I can't believe I have never thanked our league volunteers. We have a small army of people who plan this, make all the arrangements, get everything set up just to, help the community have a good experience. So all of our league volunteers, we're just so happy and thankful. And the crew out at the Library Admin Center too. We have a whole separate crew taking care of the watch party out at the Admin Center. So thank you to all of you out there too. So okay. So want to make sure everybody's aware, if you didn't notice the giant camera in the back, that this event is being live streamed to our watch party at the Admin Center and to anyone basically who wants to sign on. And I already told you about the recording. Should be available within 24 hours is what my understanding was. And you can look definitely on our website. We'll have a link that'll take you to our YouTube channel. Okay, the ground rules. We are a forum. We are not a debate. We are not a rally. Our candidates will not be engaging directly with each other. They will be engaging with you. So I just want to make that clear right up front. We don't distinguish between incumbents and challengers. At our forums, everybody starts out on a level playing field. And so that's why we're not being disrespectful when we don't use someone's title. We just ignore incumbency in these events. We do not permit surrogates to stand in on behalf of a candidate. we get a lot of questions about this question screening process that we use. So I want to just go into that a little bit so that you all feel a little more comfortable with it. We set up a website portal to receive questions on April 11th, and we shut it down at noon today. A very wise person advised me to shut it down at noon today, or I would still be fielding questions. But in that process, we received 77 questions. So we compiled them, organized them by subject matter, and the reason for that is so that we can try to identify the topics that the public, wants to hear about. And so, just to give you an idea, this is the spreadsheet for the auditor. It's my spreadsheet, so it's color-coded and organized. And we give this to our screening team, and they read over all the questions. And from these questions, they develop recommendations for questions that we feel should be asked during the forum. Now, many of you are going to be like, well, hey, wasn't my exact question asked? And I will tell you that it is because it was probably not concise. It probably contained some language that we couldn't share in a public setting. It may not have been as clear as it could have been. So we work very hard to ask a question that is neutral, so that candidates don't feel they're being personally attacked, and so that we make sure we're covering issues that are important to the candidates. That's what we're here to do. During the event, there's still time. You can still submit questions. Lori O'Neill in the back, she's got her hand up. If you still want to submit a question at this point, just raise your hand. Lori will bring you a note card. You can fill it out and give it back to her, and she'll bring it up to our question screeners here. Please do not wait. I don't know why people sometimes seem to wait for dramatic effect. Like, I've got the last question. And if you're waiting like that, your question probably isn't going to make it through our screening process. So please don't hold your questions. If you've got something that you think is important that, we need to be talking about here, get it to Lori, and we'll get it up to our screening table. All right, we're kind of drama-free here. So, okay, so we can get to the good stuff now. So how we do things here is that we will bring each race forward one at a time. We bring the candidates forward. In this case, we have 2 candidates for each race. Each candidate will make a 3-minute presentation, and then after they've completed that, our moderator will select and present the questions to the candidates. Since we're only covering 2 races, and because there's so much interest in these particular races, we've expanded the response time. We normally give a minute to respond. We've added a whole 30 seconds to that. So candidates have a minute and a half to respond. If our moderator feels there's a reason to ask a follow-up question, she will do so. That is at her sole discretion. Time limits will be strictly enforced. We have our timer here in the front row. She will be displaying the countdown timer to the candidates as we're going along. So you won't be able to see the timer, but the candidates will. So, okay, is that all I have for rules? Okay. Well, at this point, excuse me, we had planned to present the auditor race at this point, but at this point we don't have Diane Grendel. So we're hoping she's well. We're hoping she's not injured. We are going to flip the order, and we're going to have the commissioner's race go first, with the hope that Mrs. Grendel is just running late. Now, what that means, we're not permitted to present what's called an empty chair debate. We cannot, if Mrs. Grendel does not show up, we cannot let Mr. Walder sit up here and answer questions. It's considered to be, what is the right word? It's a campaign contribution, is how the IRS views it, and that puts our tax status in danger. So the best we will be able to do is allow Mr. Walder to come forward and make his 3-minute presentation, and then he has assured me that he will be available after the event to answer any questions that people might have here. So fingers crossed, if Mrs. excuse me, if Mrs. Grendel shows up late, then we will certainly put the auditor's race on. And we have a lot of questions for you guys, so we sure hope she shows up. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to our moderator. I want to introduce you to Meg Pauken. Meg Pauken is a member of the board of the League of Women Voters. She acts as our treasurer. She is an estate and elder planning attorney with a practice here in Bainbridge, and she will be handling things from here.
Good evening, everyone. It's so nice to see all of you here.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I forgot one very important thing. Microphone lessons. Is Mike here? Mike is here. I'm going to ask Michael Pope, who is the IT guy for the library, to explain the microphones so that we don't mess him up. I got to turn this one off.
Right on the top.
This one's here. These are different.
Yeah, these are different. So if you want to mute these microphones, there's a button on the bottom of it. Press it once. You can see the little LED turns red. Press it again. Green means it's on and live. Any questions? Great. All right.
Thanks, Mike.
No problem.
All right. Can you all hear me all right? Good. So we're going to begin with our commissioner's race, and I'll invite the candidates to come up one at a time to the podium to deliver their 3-minute introduction. Once they've finished, they can have a seat at the table, and after both have finished, we'll begin our questions. So I'm going to begin with Mr. Walter Claypool, so you may step up.
Mr. Claypool.
Yes, sir.
Good to see you now. You're good.
Are you ready? Thank you, League of Women Voters, for hosting this forum and the audience for showing up. I'm Skip Claypool. I'm running for Geauga County Commissioner, and I ask for your vote on May 3rd. This election is not really about me. It's not about my opponent. It's really about you and the people in Geauga County. We see poor government decisions having consequences. We see it nationally with high gas prices, runaway inflation, children being taught to hate one another, an education system that's teaching sexuality to our young kids. But I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to give you a little bit of background on who I am. My wife and Pam and I have 5 kids and 10 grandkids. I had a long career as a business executive and spent a good deal of time in other countries, including Asia, South America, and Mexico. I was an air traffic controller. I'm an Air Force veteran and have 2 kids in the military. I was a Geauga County Commissioner and a Township Trustee. I'm on the Geauga Mental Health Board, the Geauga Planning Commission. I'm a Blue Coat member and a Rotarian. And I'm a Christian. My faith is important to me, and my faith and my rural upbringing are the foundation of my values and my decision process. I believe in the Constitution and that it's the basis of our laws, and I believe in limited government power. I believe in the people of America, and I believe in you, the people in Geauga County. I love our country, and I would die for it. I've seen communism, socialism, and Marxism firsthand, and I know them to be evil. I have strong conservative values and opinions, and I have the courage to express them. I make no apologies for my beliefs. I express them openly to give voice to those unable and too weary to speak out. As a former commissioner, I took my responsibilities very seriously. We manage millions of dollars of tax dollars, and we represent you and your values. As a commissioner, I created the plans for the new county buildings, the Waste Management Center. We paid off the long-term debt, saved over $500,000 in the county budget with no negative consequences. There was no sales tax increase during my tenure, and I pushed back on big government programs like NOACA. This election is not a popularity contest. We have serious issues facing us and serious business to do. The job requires somebody with a track record and the courage to speak up, and the leadership to make good decisions. Make no mistake, there's outside organizations trying to change our county's culture, and the county commissioners serve a vital role in defending the county from these influences. Your vote is very important, and it matters more than ever. If you want to defend our conservative Giaga culture, then please cast your ballot for me, Skip Claypool. Thank you. I beat you.
Thank you, Mr. Claypool. Mr. Dvorak.
Three minutes is a short time. First of all, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for putting this great event on in this in the library, new Bainbridge Library. I am your current county commissioner. I'm endorsed by Congressman Dave Joyce, Jerry Serino, Prosecutor Jim Flays, and Chris Hiscox, our treasurer. I've been married for 47 years. I have 4 children, 7 grandchildren. Raising a family in Geauga County, you can't replace that experience. After high school, I followed my dad's footsteps and went into the trade school. I became a bricklayer, then I became the trade school instructor 4 years after I graduated. I was a teacher through Auburn Career Center, and after 40 years in the trade, I got my realtor's license in 2014. I believe in small government. Currently, we have less employees in the county offices than 4 years ago. I am pro-life, pro-Second Amendment. I'm a member of St. Helens Church. I was a township trustee for 11 years and learned to do more with less. My community involvement, Burton Middlefield Rotary past president, past board member of the Red Tulip Project, Veterans Memorial Inc., Lake and Geauga Realtors Association. I created the Special Needs Fishing Program and the Geauga Jeep Invasion for the veterans. I support law enforcement and first responders. I believe in Geauga County DARE program and want to continue funding the great program that it is. Geauga County is where history meets the future. Our past commissioners in the 70s purchased property in the center of the county, and in the 80s, Ravenwood and Merritt Drive were dedicated. In my first 4 months, Tim, Ralph, and myself communicated with the county elected officials in the city of Chardon. They were really not interested in moving to the 35 acres south of Chardon Square. In the next 6 months, we decided to build on Ravenwood Drive. Then we searched for an architect. That took a couple of months. We chose TDA, which is then designed out of Willoughby. About 6 months after that, we chose a contractor, Donnelly Independent. Our groundbreaking was October 28th, 2020. We'll be moving in this summer on time and on budget. There's a lot to be said about the slow growth of Geauga County, but the county has expanded the airport, and Geauga-Trumbull Solid Waste new building will be open in May. I'm the current president of Geauga County Board of Commissioners, the president of the Trumbull Solid Waste District, treasurer of the Northeast Ohio County Commissioners Association. I learned a lot during COVID. With all the county departments, I implemented during the conference calls once a week for many months during the darkest times of the pandemic. Sometimes in the darkest times you could come up with the brightest ideas. But during COVID, I implemented a prayer during our meetings after the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you.
I'm asking for your vote. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. There you go. That was very helpful. I don't want to get feedback. I'm mic'd separately, so to watch the microphone. So our first question for our commissioner candidates. You'll notice that this evening we're live streaming, we have a remote option, we have a lot of ways for people to participate. In the voter guide, both of you had different opinions about providing remote access to public meetings. Please expand on your reasoning for either supporting or opposing remote access to public meetings. And we'll start with Mr. Dvorak.
Okay. I believe in open transparency, 100%, And if we video it, live stream it, whatever it takes, we have nothing to hide. So I want to be totally transparent.
Mr. Claypool?
So I have a little different experience than Jim. I implemented live streaming or videoing the meetings in Geauga County for the first time years ago. And we did that for quite some time. There's some people in this room that know that. And during the COVID experience, we did the same thing in Chester. So I have a lot of experience with it. And what we discovered was it's not, well, I believe 100% in transparency, it's not everything that it's cracked up to be, because it's hard to manage and give people the opportunity to participate at the same level on a video as it is participating live in the meeting. There's legal issues with record retention. If you go out and look at the Ohio Attorney General, they list all kinds of opinions on how you have to manage content that's captured during those meetings. So there's a lot of logistics and legal issues around doing that. That said, I think there's a time and a place for that. There are certain situations and specific instances where video conferencing or video streaming is helpful and applies. You just have to give the public equal access, and sometimes that's very hard to do. I know in my case, I was harmed in a local board election process because I wasn't permitted to equally participate in the meeting that was occurring. And so there's not enough time to go into a lot of this. My clock is running out, but I agree with it. It just has to be handled properly.
Thank you. Question number 2. County commissioners appoint many individuals to boards and committees throughout the county. What process and what factors would you consider when making these appointments? And we'll start with you this time, Mr. Claypool.
Thanks for the question. Making board appointments is one of the most important things that county commissioners do. And it's a heavy responsibility. Ohio Revised Code in many instances guides that process because oftentimes there's a process, well, like with the mental health board, for selecting people. The commissioners get 8 people and the state gets 7 appointees. But the Ohio legislators understood that the county commissioners are closest to their community. They're elected for a purpose. They're elected to represent the people in our county. And so more often than not, you want to choose people who reflect your beliefs and values because you were selected by the people to represent those beliefs and values. And so the county commissioners have traditionally, and they continue this process, make the notices public, they review, they interview, and then they choose appropriately the individuals that are that they're selecting. And I think that's a good process. We get good individuals. The Mental Health Board and the Planning Commission have some of the strongest individuals that I've seen. In the case of alternates are a direct reflection of the individual who they're choosing their alternate. And so they have a lot of latitude in who they pick, and I think that's the way it should be. I think that's the right thing to do.
Thank you. Mr. Dvorak.
Yes. On picking the right person for the right job, I really believe in the background and the merit of the job that they're going to do. If someone's going to go for the Planning Commission, I feel that they should have some experience with planning, from the township that they're from or whatever. We have over 96,000 people in Geauga County, and from this day forward, I'm going to make a motion to take applications for 2 months and to see. There's a lot of great, wonderful people in Geauga County. So let's look at them all, not just pick somebody that might have been there before. So.
All right, thank you. What do you see as the advantages and disadvantages of Geauga County being a part of NOACA, the Northeast Ohio Area-Wide Coordinating Agency? And I'll start with you, Mr. Dvorak.
The positive and the negative things about NOACA?
Mm-hmm. In other words, what could Geauga County stand to both gain from it or what would be a hindrance in some way to Geauga County for being a member of that agency?
Okay. NOACA is the Northeast Ohio area-wide coordinating agency. They've probably been around for about 40 years or more.
1968.
Thank you very much. It's an MPO, which is a Metropolitan Planning Organization. There's 5 counties in the NOACA, and Geauga County has the least amount of people. The population is the lowest. So we get the least amount of votes. We are a minority with that group, and our dues are $42,000 a year. Half of that is paid from the Commissioner's office, 30% of that is paid for from the Engineer's office, and 20% is paid for by the Water Resources. So all 3 entities go to the meetings, different committees, and things like that. I sit on like 3 or 4 committees. And it's a avenue to possibly get money for funds to help with roads and things like that. We've been getting shorted for many years. So we're a minority in the group. I voice my opinion, and we do the best we can to get back as much money as we can. And that's been going on for years.
All right, Mr. Claypool, what would you say are the advantages, potential advantages and disadvantages of Geauga County being part of NOACA?
I need an hour, or
You
at
have a
least
minute
2
and a half.
hours. There is no topic, and everybody in this room knows this, there's no topic or nobody in this room that knows more about NOACA than I do, because I've studied them. There is no advantage to being in NOACA. Zero, none, nada. It's a federally mandated planning organization that takes our money back. We pay about $10 million a year as Geauga County into the federal gas tax program, 18.5 cents a gallon. It goes back to the federal government, block grant comes back to the state of Ohio, ODOT divvies the money up. NOACA uses a very progressive criteria for divvying that money back out. We used to get about $1 million a year out of that fund. We get nothing today. I think the last I heard from my county engineer was about $200,000. We can form our own MPO. If we can get Lake County to realize that they benefit and we benefit by separating and becoming our own MPO, we'd make about $7 million a year. If you doubt that, ask me and I will show you the numbers. I've got a spreadsheet that was approved by ODOT that proves that out. There is no advantage to being a member with NOACA, particularly since they're now expanding their scope into a whole new program, a federal program called CED. And I'm running out of time, so I won't have time to go into that. But people need to understand who this organization is. It is not good for Geauga County. We need to get out of it and get our money back.
I'm sensing some strong feelings there.
A little passion.
I just wanted to let you all know there are 125 people watching online right now. So in addition to everybody in this room. So I think that speaks well for the involvement of our community in local elections. The old adage is all politics is local. So here we are. All right, so moving on to the next topic. How should the opioid settlement funds and federal stimulus funds be used to benefit the residents of Geauga County? Mr. Claypool, I'll let you start this time.
That's something that I'd want to give some thought to, but my personal preference is always for interdiction. It's to do upfront prevention rather than after the fact taking care. Because if we can get the drugs off the street, if we can get the criminals off the street, then we don't have to worry as much about the back end side. So I'd rather deal with things on the front end with law enforcement, increasing law enforcement capability, putting some more people at the prosecutor's office, doing a lot of that more upfront stuff rather than the back end stuff. That's not to say that the money shouldn't be spread around and you do make a balanced effort. But my preference is always doing the front end side of that. Now, I've not given that a lot of thought because I don't know what the options are. There's opioid dollars, like any other dollars that comes back from the federal government or the state, has rules associated with it, and I haven't looked at the rules and found out what the possible uses on it are. I know Jim's more knowledgeable on that because he's had an opportunity to take a look at the criteria underlying that. But again, my preference is to deal generally with the front end side, not the back end side.
All right, thank you. Mr. Dvorak, how do you see, what ways do you think the opioid settlement funds and federal stimulus funds could be used to best benefit the residents of Geauga County?
Well, at the present time, I sit on the Region 13, the state of Ohio, for the Ohio Recovery, Inc., and there's 19 regions in the state of Ohio, and Region 13 is Ashtabula, Lake, Giaga, and Portage, and we'll be receiving money for the next 18 years for opioid settlements and things like that. But currently, Geauga County will be getting $92,000 from the Giant Eagle settlement. And I agree with prevention. That's why I'm a strong believer in the DARE program in Geauga County. I never want to either talk about it or take funds away from the DARE program. That works. I witnessed a Amish school graduation. I helped the officer out, pass out some certificates and things. It's not just about drugs and alcohol. It's about making the right choices in life to a 5th grader and an 8th grader. And the officers also teach these Amish children to rattle off a license plate number. A couple months ago, there was an Amish, or a van going through the Amish area trying to pick up young Amish girls or Amish women, you know, asking where I'm just about out of gas and I can't make it to the gas station. So this officer trained them to rattle off the license number, and the little boy stood up and says, you know, this van that was here a couple months ago, rattled it off, and the officer behind me whispered, yes, that's exactly what the right, and we apprehended him, and so on and so forth. So that's, I'm a firm believer in the DARE program. I wouldn't understand anybody being against it.
Terrific. Thank you. So kind of segueing a little bit from the prevention programs, mental health prevention programs, crisis intervention, peer counseling, and outpatient and inpatient clinical programs are all in high demand in this county. How would you propose resolving these areas within this county? We'll start with you, Mr. Dvorak.
Well, those issues are always going to be here, and we're always going to spend money on it, because to me, if a program is out there and there's 10 or 12 people that have mental health issues or dual diagnosis, mental health and drugs, and when we lost our daughter in 17, at the time it was 40% of the people with dual diagnosis. Now it's like 90 or 95% of the people. And even with the prisoners in Geauga County Jail, it's a lot of mental health issues in the jail. So I'm going to continue to support, because if you teach somebody and have a program for 12 people and there's only 2 or 3 that make it through, we can't give up on people. We can never give up on people, especially people from Geauga County. So.
All right. Mr. Claypool?
So the county commissioners aren't the mental health board. We have a mental health board. I happen to sit on the mental health board, who oversees a lot of the counseling, the agencies that do counseling, so in Ravenwood and the UH Hospital and a lot of the organizations that do the counseling. The commissioners don't really get involved with that too much, and so about the only activity the commissioners get involved with is funding the victim advocacy programs that are with the sheriff and with the prosecutor's office. And those programs are good programs, and they have a special funding mechanism. It doesn't come from the opioid funding, that sort of thing. There's a lot of grants and funding that comes back to the mental health organization to take care of the folks who are going through these programs. And all these programs, the peer counseling programs and the victims advocacy programs and the DARE program, all of those programs are funded through the mental health organization. And there's we have a great board right now who are evaluating all of these programs to make sure that they're working properly. And there are people that have questions. And we should question every single program, because we're spending people's tax dollars to make sure that they work. Sometimes you need to tweak these programs. Sometimes they work great. Sometimes they get a little, off in a ditch from time to time. And so the roles for people who are sitting on the boards are to evaluate these programs and make sure that they're tracking correctly, the monies are being spent correctly. Sometimes you need more money to deal with a particular set of issues. And so the mental health board is really the organization should be taking care of that area.
Thank you. So those of us who follow the local news have seen some high-profile lawsuits among various government entities. How would you in Geauga County. Lawsuits are an expensive way to resolve differences between governmental bodies. What would you do personally as commissioner to minimize future legal actions between entities if you were elected? And we'll start with you this time, Mr. Claypool.
So as a commissioner, I had experience with that. I know Jim has had some experience that he'll probably go over with you on that. Oftentimes, it's very difficult. You try to make peace between the parties that are involved, and sometimes it's very difficult because all the offices that exist within the county are individual. They have their individual authorities, and so you don't want to interfere with the organizations, whether it's the auditor or the courts. Actually, the courts have a separation of powers thing that goes on. So it's very difficult sometimes to intercede. The best that commissioners can do is try to be a peacemaker within his organization, use some common sense, use some logic, talk to the individuals involved, and from time to time, you may have to take a legal position yourself. But from a legal interaction standpoint, the commissioners aren't going to interfere with the auditor as the auditor is doing his job. He's got a job to do. He was elected to do a job. When the courts are the officers of the courts or the judges are elected. They're elected to do a job. So they sometimes have differences of opinion, and those differences have to be resolved through a court mechanism. Hopefully, they're able to avoid that. But the best that the commissioners can do is to try to be the peacemaker in the middle and point out the challenges in taking things to the court.
Thank you. Mr. Dvorak.
Yes, well, I've been a public official since '08, and sometimes I tell myself I know how government works and I know how government does not work. And that's part of it's under the Ohio Revised Code that any department, if they have a situation with the commissioners, they have every right to get their own legal to combat a decision or different things like that. So it's under the Ohio Revised Code. We'll work through it. We have a couple situations right now. We're under litigation. I can't speak of any kind of details, but commissioners, there's 3 of us, so that means there's 3 different personalities, and I'm used to working on a board as a township trustee, and there's 3 commissioners, so there's 3 personalities, but you blend it all together, and you end up with a personality for the commissioners board, and sometimes that whole board doesn't agree with certain situations or certain departments, so you have to go to court. Thank you.
I'm going to ask a little follow-up question on that, and I'm going to give you 30 seconds each to answer. So what I'd like each of you to do is to give me an example of a situation in your public life as an elected representative, either at the township level or the county level, of a time when you made an effort to bring the heat down and to get people to the table. I'd like to hear an example of that. Mr. Dvorak.
Well, I've been with the administrator with a certain department several times, and to turn the heat down, and I've given every effort so we have 0 lawsuits against us or our decisions and things like that. But I think I'm well known in the county is to bring people together and accomplish things together and figure things out. So.
Thanks. Mr. Claypool.
So right after being elected commissioner the first time, there was a dispute over a parking lot behind the auditor's office, the Opera building. And our prosecutor, different auditor at the time, and a judge were in a tussle over arranging the parking spots in the back parking lot. That was leading to the courts. And so I sat down, put together a plan along with our county maintenance individual, and we came up with a plan that seemed to be workable. I presented that to the parties involved, and we were able to resolve it without it going to court.
Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate that insight. So with respect to the environment and changing climate and changing energy needs and desires, as a commissioner, what plans do you have, if any, to improve the septic system regulations, protect our groundwater, add electric charging stations. Do you have any such plans, and if so, what are they? And I believe we started with Mr. Dvorak last time, did we not? So we'll start with Mr. Claypool
So do me a
this time.
favor and repeat the question.
So, with respect to environmental issues and energy issues, as a commissioner, what plans do you have, if any, to improve the environmental aspects of septic system regulations, groundwater protection, electric charging stations, or other alternate forms of energy?
So 30 seconds isn't anywhere near enough.
You have a minute 30.
Oh, a minute and 30 seconds. Okay. Well, a minute and 30 is not actually good enough to answer this question, but let me give it a crack just the same. First of all, we're not the EPA. So county commissioners have a certain authority. They're the budgetary administrative authority for the county. So we're not going to set septic system rules. Those are established as law in the state of Ohio. Now, we can have an impact, and when I was a commissioner, I worked with Bob Weisdeck at the time and fought to the extent we could the laws being created that impact our septic systems today. And we fought very hard over that. We went to Columbus and we presented to the state legislators at the time, and that law passed. So the best we can do is to mitigate the impacts of those laws. Relative to other environmental kinds of things, again, we're not an EPA. We have a planning authority that does countywide planning, the County Planning Commission, that has some ability to comment and to work with various state agencies to apply some of the opportunities to clean some things up. And we work with NOACA. I actually sat on the Water Quality, Air Quality Committees when I was a commissioner. And I had a big influence over how they promoted or how they created the outcomes of those. And I will say, to the benefit of Geauga County, and I'm going to be running out of time or I'll tell you a lot more about that.
All right, thank you. Mr. Dvorak, do you need me to repeat the question, or are you?
Sure, go ahead.
With respect to the changing environment and climate, as a commissioner, what plans do you have, if any, to improve the environmental effect of septic system regulations, groundwater protections, electric charging stations, and the like?
Well, Geauga County is a septic tank system county. We have maybe 9 sewer plants in the county, and as my township days, and as a realtor, Geauga County has a point of sales process, and the only time a lot of houses have any money going through that house is when they sell it. And that's the time to fix or tune up your septic system. Like it or not, that's how it is, but in time, it's a better environment for the neighborhood. We don't have raw sewage going into streams or low areas and ditches and things like that. So the point of sales is working in Geauga County. As far as groundwater, when I was township trustee, I was president of the Township Association for 6 years or 3 terms. And we had great debate with the Planning Commission because they wanted to eliminate the groundwater monitoring system. And it cost the county about $20,000, and you got a $10,000 grant from that. But all it was doing was monitoring the level of the water. But if a well drops 2 foot or 3 foot or 4 foot, all of a sudden, something's wrong. So that monitoring system would tell you that. But in Parkman Township, there's 15 wells that are, and it'd be a different test, of course, that are real close to the ODOT garage, and there's salt in their wells. And there's 15 new wells that has to be done. So, and as far as E-stations go, NOACA has plans for 15 or so in Geauga County, but it's strictly voluntary.
Time. I appreciate your responses to that. Thank you. So we have a question that was submitted from the audience tonight. As holders to the title of various county properties, what areas would you like to see further developed, and into what? And we'll start with Mr. Dvorak this time, right?
Yes, the county has a lot of property here and there, and it's deeded under the county commissioner's name, whoever the county commissioner is at that time. But really, Geauga County is a slow growth area. We're not looking for housing developments or anything else. We like the rural setting. I'm a firm believer from my township trustees' day to really firm up and protect the 3-acre, 5-acre lot system in Geauga County. Our forefathers put that in place, and I respect that, and I'll protect that as much as I can. We have a great county fair, one of the best in Geauga County. It's the 200th anniversary this year. As far as developing property, the only ones that we might, in time, slow growth, would be in the center of the county. Because right now we're going to be opening up our new office building, Merritt and Ravenwood Drive. There's a lot of foresight in the future. So, but to hurry up and run and advertise to build or overbuild in Geauga County, I'm not for it.
Mr. Claypool.
So the county's not a realtor, and we're not into developing property. We're not going to build homes on property. We hold property for public use. So a lot of the property we have Western Reserve Land Conservancy easements on it and are very restricted. So we're not able to develop certain properties because of the restrictions we have on them. We have the county home property. That's probably the largest open area outside of the 35 acres, which is in Chardon, that we hold. And we're holding that for public purpose. Somebody at one point in time, I might have disagreed with them at that time, but they were probably smart in picking up that property because Geauga County is being consumed right now in development in a variety of areas. And so it's smart for the county to pick up that property for some future use. And so at this point in time, we wouldn't want to develop the property. We hold that property for the good of the citizens at some point in time when it's necessary. Like we're building the waste management district site in the center of the county. That waste management site, which I designed or proposed to the commissioners at the time, is going to really do a nice job of servicing the people in Geauga County, so you won't have to drive all the way to Parkman any longer to take hazardous waste and all that kind of stuff. It's going to be a great facility for recycling, promoting recycling, taking care of environmental issues, and so on and so forth. Same thing with building the new county offices. We held that property, bought it years and years ago, and then now we're able to put public buildings on it, which I think, again, is really going to benefit the people in Geauga County, given its location and other features. Thank you. That was the first time I ran over. Can I bank time from past? Because I'm only not using the time all the time. So.
All right. So I have a wild card question for each of you. And this question is, what do you think is a responsibility of county commissioners that the residents of the county are least aware of that you do as a county commissioner? And I think we're at Mr. Dvorak to start this time, correct or no? No, we're at Mr. Claypool to start.
Least aware.
Yeah, what do you do that you think is an unsung job as a county commissioner that people just don't really realize is on your plate?
Well, let me comment in this way. Generally speaking, if you ask the average citizen in Geauga County, they have no idea what a county commissioner is. What a county commissioner does, they think we run the schools and we run the park system and we do a lot of other things that county commissioners don't do. So generally speaking, the citizenry is really unaware, and there's no reason for them to be aware of what a county commissioner is, unless they run into a problem of some kind. Then they discover quickly where the commissioner's office is and what our limitations happen to be. All that said, I don't think that the average person knows how many boards that the commissioners and other activities that the commissioners go to, how much time is spent, like with the Portage County Juvenile Detention Center and with all the other boards that we go to. I don't think that they really understand the amount of time that it takes sometimes to get some of these things accomplished.
Thank you. Mr. Dvorak.
I want to bank that time.
Well, I'll sum it up as the Geauga County Commissioner's role. We have 11 departments. It's our job, budgetary situations, is to work hand in hand, and I'm a proponent of this, work hand in hand with the department heads and give them their budget that within reason to serve the residents. It's about serving. It's about being a public servant. And the biggest surprise for the residents that we do know or don't know is be out in the public. County commissioner should be out in the public as much as possible. And then they can ask questions, personal questions. And I welcome that every day of the week. And I think that's my job, and I'm very proud of it. I like to serve. Our motto in Rotary is service above self, and I just want to live that every day as county commissioner.
Thank you. And I want to thank both of you for your complete, thorough, and heartfelt answers, and also for abiding by our time limits. So thank you very much. So we're moving on now to the auditor's time in the evening, and we had hoped that Mrs. Grandel would arrive this evening so that we could ask questions and do that, and she has not. So Mr. Walder, you may come up and do your 3-minute presentation, but sadly we can't ask questions because that would be almost seen as a campaign event by the League of Women Voters, and we can't do that because we're a nonpartisan organization. So go ahead with your 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters. I'd like to thank the Giaga Public Library for having us here. And I'd like to apologize to all the residents who came to hear some answers to some good questions. Unfortunately, we cannot accommodate that. My name is Chuck Walder. I am your current Giaga County Auditor. While I've only got 90 seconds. While I am a lifelong Republican, I believe the auditor must equally represent all residents, regardless of party they're in. I believe we're at a watershed moment in Giaga County. Up until 4 years ago, Giaga residents believed that all was good in the county. But in reality, we have been victimized by a 9-year-long embezzlement by the former county IT director under the authority of the former auditor and the Automatic Data Processing Board. There were many reasons why this embezzlement happened, and it also went undetected for so long, not the least of which was a lack of proper procedures, policies, checks, and balances. There was plenty of blame to go around, and many people used that to their advantage. Oftentimes it was political. This is when my life and Giaga County government intersected. I was asked to come aboard and fix the problem. I accepted the challenge and I immediately went to work. There's an old saying, be careful what you ask for. I took office and put in place safeguard measures to improve the accountability and security of your money in the Treasury for all government officials, including the judiciary. I expected some resistance, but I stayed the course to right the ship. I fought for what I believed was right. I have been tested time and time again. I do not apologize for being true to my promise to you when taking office. I returned $500,000 in excess real estate assessment funds to local governments after moving that fund into the black. I contributed to reducing your overall property tax burden in 2022 by $3.3 million by holding all taxing authorities accountable for demonstrating need. Now I am being vilified by one such taxing authority who failed their duty to you to properly justify their need for your tax money. I protect your money. For nearly 4 years, I've been under attack by a primary resistor to my requirements of more oversight, more accountability, and better checks and balances. Now that resistor's wife wants to be your auditor. It has taken my staff 4 long years of hard work to restore the confidence of the auditor and ADP offices. While I am proud of what they've accomplished, you are the true judges of our work. Not Columbus politicians and not rogue partisan political clubs. I have stayed the high ground during this campaign. Thankfully, it's almost over and it's out of my control and in your hands. I asked for your reelection, and you know exactly what you can expect from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walder. I want to remind everyone that our candidates may be staying in the lobby area. They had their tables set up. So since we weren't able to ask the questions in the open forum, you may feel free, if they are sticking around, to do that. And I want to thank you all for being here. This is what democracy is all about.